When I was younger, I used to have this exact same question. Why does the left have a soft corner for Islam? It used to be these videos of people who are supportive of women wearing hijabs or raising a voice against racism against Muslims, where airport security or people in general would racially profile Muslims or anyone with a beard or a turban, and sometimes Sikhs would get caught in the crossfire.
Targeting minorities that cannot remove their articles of faith and are still proud Canadians, I think is invasive and to me is quite highly discriminatory.
Now, I'm not saying that I was against the message of any of those videos, but those videos were mostly coming from channels that were more or less left-leaning. Even now, you can see in the Israel-Palestine conflict, which I spoke about in the last video, how most voices in support of Palestine are from the left. In fact, you can almost always tell a person's political leaning by whether they're pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And to me back then, and I'm sure to a lot of people even right now, in my audience, this might be a question to which they might be like, are these people mad? If anyone has questions like these in your head that don't have answers that aren't consistent with everything else you know and understand, that's a hint that you don't have clarity about that thing. I found that clarity about this question, and that's what this video is on. And if you're interested, hey, watch on. My name's Pranav, you're watching DT Rational. Let's begin. This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Nas.io and YouTube. If you wish to support me, you can find the links below. First of all, my opinions of Islam haven't changed. I think it's an oppressive religion. But you have to remember that the people following it, more than 99% of them did not choose it for themselves. Now, whatever your thoughts and ideas are on the teachings and doctrines of Islam, I think it's extremely unfair to judge an individual Muslim by that. They were probably born in a family, in a household, in a community that followed Islam, and that's probably why they follow it today. And almost none of them adopted it by choice. And this, by the way, is why all religion exists: childhood indoctrination. If you're able to somehow get rid of that, religion will eventually become a negligible force in the world today. I've spoken about this extensively in a video and I'll link it below if you're interested. Back to Islam. I think there are people that forget that someone from another community or another religion or another country is just another person, another human being like you and me. And if you were in their shoes and you wouldn't be okay with what they have to go through, then you should be raising your voices. And what do they go through? In my country, it's violence and discrimination. I've seen testimonies from Muslims who say they have to change their names to get work because the Hindu majority refuses to work with them when they see a Muslim name.
दिल्ली के अंदर हम टैक्सी वालों को नाम बदल के गाड़ी चलानी पड़ती है आज के वक्त में। अगर हम मुस्लिम नाम बताएंगे अपना तो यहाँ के लोग मना कर देते हैं कि हम ड्राइवर नहीं चाहिए, हमको हमारी ही बिरादरी का ड्राइवर चाहिए.
I can't wait for comments that say, hey, he's not talking about violence against Hindus. I think the problem with comments like these and the reason behind questions like the one in the title of the video are the same. What's missing is an understanding of power structures. What's a power structure? It's simply a hierarchy where the people on top have power and the people below don't. And whenever you have a power structure, there is a tendency for the people in power to oppress the ones not in power. And in this oppression, violence doesn't even have to be involved. The example I showed you earlier of a Muslim man having to change his name just to get work is a kind of oppression under this power structure. And if you want examples with violence, hey, think of all the lynch mobs and cow vigilantes that take justice into their own hands by lynching people under suspicion of possessing beef. By the way, I've never seen a Muslim lynch mob that lynched someone for eating pork. You know why? Religion is something that creates a power structure, clearly. It's Hinduism here in India, it's Islam in the Middle East, it's Christianity in the West. It's not always one religion that's in power and one religion that's not in power. It will depend on where you are. When a person leaves a religion or goes against it, what they have to realize is that they're not just raising their voices against that religion alone. They should be raising their voices against the power structure in their part of the world. They have to recognize that the religion in question here may not always be the one in power. And it may not even be religion. It can be patriarchy that's brought on by religion. There are all kinds of power structures like this: religion, patriarchy, capitalism, race, caste, etc. I know many of you may not be following me to watch this kind of content, but as an atheist with a public audience, it's my responsibility to talk on these topics also. The brand of atheism that I adopted isn't merely a rejection of anything supernatural. It is explicitly anti-religious. More specifically, it is against religious oppression and oppression of all kinds. And I find it far more useful to look at the world not as religion X and religion Y, etc., but as power structures, as the oppressor and the oppressed. That may not always be the case. That may not fit into every single society. But when it does, and you're able to look at it this way, hey, you'll make a lot more sense with the conclusions you come to. With this context, let's talk about Islamophobia. It's usually defined as a dislike or prejudice against Islam or Muslims. But you know what? I think a far more appropriate word is Islamophobia. Because way too often this manifests as a dislike of Muslims, of people. Muslims suffer disproportionately in India because of this. But I'll use the word Islamophobia instead of Muslimophobia because that's a word that tends to get used in these contexts. Clearly, Islamophobia exists in India and Hinduphobia exists in the West because the power structures that exist in these places enable them. So in this context, yes, I'm on the side of Muslims in India. And that doesn't mean I agree with or I approve any of the teachings of Islam. And I'm on the side of any other oppressed minority anywhere in the world and will raise my voice against any injustice brought on by an abuse of power. Given all this, is it any surprise I'm pro-Palestine in the Israel-Palestine conflict? Yes, what Hamas did on October 7th was a terrible thing, but it doesn't justify what Israel is doing now and what it continues to do. Once again, think of this in terms of power. Israel is the one that controls the supply of electricity to Gaza, resources to Gaza. Just look at who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed. And you don't even have to look at it in terms of events following October 7th. Just look at things historically. Who has been the oppressor and the oppressed? The left doesn't have a soft corner for Islam. It cares about oppressed communities in a power structure. And I'm probably going to get some comment that uses some big brain logic to type out that, hey, prisons are doing the same thing. The legal system is punishing prisoners and putting them in prisons, taking away their rights and oppressing them. Please don't draw this kind of false equivalence. What prisons and the legal system does is punish an individual based on his or her actions and not on the authority of some scripture, but legally, on laws that are decided by many people and are voted on. I don't think it's nearly the same as oppression based on scripture. And the important point to note here is that the punishment is based on the individual's actions and not systemic oppression. So once again, please don't draw this false equivalence. Any other comments you have, let me know below and I'll try and respond to as many as I can. If you like my content, hey, feel free to support me. The links to all my support pages are given below. If you do choose to support me, you get perks, which you can see by clicking the join button. But I recommend you support me on Patreon because it may be cheaper for you and the higher reward tiers also give you exclusive rewards from my main channel Science is Dope, like exclusive videos. I ask for direct support from my audience because the topics I choose on this channel may be offensive to some viewers and so sponsors don't want to come anywhere near it. But you guys prefer watching, so I'd like you to support this content if you want to see more of it. Thank you and I'll see you in the next one.